Buddhism begins with a question that feels surprisingly modern: why does life feel unsatisfying, even when things seem to be going well? More than 2,000 years ago, in northern India, a teacher remembered as the Buddha built an entire path around that question. Buddhism is often described as a religion, but it is also a philosophy, a discipline of the mind, and a practical way of life. Today it is one of the world's major traditions, with hundreds of millions of followers and a deep influence on Asian art, ethics, meditation, politics, and culture. But at its core, Buddhism is not mainly about worshipping a creator god or accepting a fixed belief system. It is about examining experience directly: desire, fear, change, pain, identity, and the possibility of freedom from the patterns that keep human beings trapped. The historical Buddha lived around the 6th or 5th century BCE, during a period of intense religious and philosophical experimentation in the eastern Gangetic plain of India. This was the world of the Rama movements, wandering seekers, ascetics, philosophers, and renunciants who questioned established ritual systems and searched for liberation from rebirth and suffering. According to Buddhist tradition, the Buddha was not born enlightened. He was a human being who investigated the problem of suffering through direct practice. He tested extremes, including harsh asceticism, before rejecting both self-indulgence and self-torture. This became one of Buddhism's defining ideas: the middle way. Liberation would not come from chasing pleasure, but it would also not come from destroying the body. It required clarity, discipline, and insight. The central problem Buddhism addresses is called dukkha. It is often translated as suffering, but the meaning is broader. Dukkha includes obvious pain, such as grief, illness, aging, and death. But it also includes unease, instability, dissatisfaction, and the quiet sense that nothing we cling to can provide permanent security. A pleasant moment changes. A relationship changes. A body changes. A success becomes old news. Even happiness can become stressful when we fear losing it. Buddhism does not say that life is only misery. Instead, it observes that ordinary life is unreliable when we demand permanence from what is constantly moving. This diagnosis is not meant to be pessimistic. It is meant to be honest enough to make freedom possible. The Buddha's teaching is commonly summarized through the Four Noble Truths. First, dukkha exists. Second, dukkha arises with craving, attachment, and clinging. Third, this cycle can end. Fourth, there is a path that leads toward that ending. The power of this structure is that it works almost like a medical diagnosis. Identify the condition, understand its cause, recognize that healing is possible, and follow the treatment. The cause is not simply wanting things. It is the deeper habit of grasping, clinging to pleasure, clinging to identity, clinging to views, clinging to the idea that reality should obey our preferences. Nirvana, often translated as extinguishing or blowing out, refers to the extinguishing of these fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. The practical treatment is the Noble Eightfold Path. It includes right view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. These are not 8 isolated commandments. They form an integrated training. Right view means understanding experience clearly, especially impermanence, causality, and the consequences of action. Right speech and action bring ethics into daily life through non-harming, honesty, and restraint. Right livelihood asks whether one's work causes harm. Right effort, mindfulness, and concentration train the mind so it can observe thoughts and emotions without being ruled by them. In Buddhism, wisdom, ethics, and meditation support one another. A calmer mind sees more clearly. Clearer seeing leads to wiser action. Wiser action reduces suffering for oneself and others. Another key Buddhist idea is dependent origination. In simple terms, things do not exist in isolation. They arise because of causes and conditions. A thought appears because of memory, sensation, language, mood, and habit. A conflict appears because of fear, desire, misunderstanding, and circumstance. A person is not a single unchanging essence, but a process made of body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. This is connected to the Buddhist teaching of non-self, or anatta. Buddhism does not deny that people exist in ordinary life. It questions whether there is a permanent, independent self behind the flow of experience. When clinging to self softens, defensiveness and craving can also soften. Karma in Buddhism is often misunderstood. It is not just cosmic reward and punishment, and it is not fatalism. Karma means intentional action and the consequences that flow from it. Thoughts, words, and deeds shape habits. Habits shape character. Character shapes the way we experience the world and respond to it. If anger is repeatedly fed, anger becomes easier. If generosity, patience, and attention are cultivated, they also become easier. In many Buddhist traditions, karma is linked to samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. But even on a psychological level, the teaching is immediate. Every intention plants a tendency. Buddhism asks practitioners to become aware of what they are planting. Buddhist practice usually begins with refuge in the triple gem, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha is the awakened teacher, the Dharma is the teaching or truth he discovered, and the Sangha is the community of practitioners, especially the monastic community. Monastic life became central to Buddhism because it created a structure for intensive practice, study, ethical discipline, and preservation of teachings. Monks and nuns took vows and lived by rules designed to reduce attachment and distraction. But Buddhism was never only for monastics. Lay followers supported monasteries, practiced generosity, observed ethical precepts, meditated, and sought merit and wisdom within family and working life. As Buddhism spread, it developed many canons, languages, and philosophical schools. Teachings were preserved in Pali, Sanskrit, Chinese, Tibetan, and other languages. Different communities emphasized different texts, practices, and ideals. This diversity can make Buddhism look fragmented, but the major traditions still orbit shared concerns: suffering, impermanence, ethical conduct, meditation, wisdom, and liberation. Some schools focus on careful analysis of mind and phenomena. Others emphasize devotion, chanting, ritual, compassion, or sudden insight. Buddhism adapted as it moved across cultures, absorbing local artistic forms, languages, and customs while still returning to the question of awakening. Its history is not a single straight line. It is a living network of interpretation and practice. Theravada, often translated as the School of the Elders, is one of the major surviving branches of Buddhism. It is especially associated with Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia. Theravada places strong emphasis on the early teachings preserved in the Pali Canon and on the path toward nirvana through ethical discipline, meditation, and wisdom. A central ideal is the arahant, one who has awakened and ended the cycle of craving and rebirth. Theravada practice can include monastic discipline, lay merit-making, mindfulness, loving-kindness meditation, and insight practice. In the modern world, many forms of mindfulness meditation known globally have been influenced by Theravada traditions, even when presented outside a religious framework. Mahayana, the Great Vehicle, became the largest branch of Buddhism and spread widely through China, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, Taiwan, Nepal, Bhutan, and beyond. Its defining ideal is the Bodhisattva, a being who seeks awakening not only for personal liberation, but for the liberation of all sentient beings. This gives Mahayana a powerful emphasis on compassion, emptiness, and universal salvation. Traditions within Mahayana include Pure Land, Tiantai, Chan, Zen, Nichiren, and Tendai. Some focus on meditation and direct insight, others on devotion and faith, others on scripture, chanting, or disciplined practice in everyday life. The shared idea is that wisdom and compassion cannot be separated. To see reality clearly is also to respond to suffering with care. Vajrayana, often associated with Tibetan Buddhism and also preserved in Japanese Shingon, incorporates esoteric and tantric methods. It uses ritual, visualization, mantra, symbolic imagery, and teacher-student transmission as accelerated means of transformation. In Vajrayana, difficult emotions and ordinary perception are not simply rejected. They are worked with through highly structured practices intended to reveal awakened qualities. Tibetan Buddhism spread through the Himalayan regions, Mongolia, and parts of Russia, including Kalmykia and Tuva. Its visual world of mandalas, deities, prayer wheels, and monastic debate can seem very different from early Buddhism, yet it still aims at liberation from ignorance and suffering. Like other Buddhist forms, it treats the mind as trainable and reality as deeper than ordinary assumptions suggest. Buddhism began in India, spread across Asia, declined in much of the Indian subcontinent, and later reached the modern West. Along the way, it shaped civilizations, temple architecture, poetry, painting, meditation systems, legal ideas, kingship, education, and concepts of compassion. Its modern global appeal often comes from its practical tools: mindfulness, non-attachment, ethical awareness, and the promise that suffering can be understood rather than merely endured. But Buddhism is deeper than a stress reduction technique. It is a radical investigation of how craving constructs dissatisfaction and how disciplined insight can loosen that construction. Its enduring message is not that life can be controlled. It is that freedom begins when we stop clinging to what was never stable in the first place. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.